But first, I think we have to talk about the story that is just dominating independent creation right now, and that is the SAG-AFTRA strike. It's wild out there right now, Zach. On July 14th, I believe is the date that we nailed down for this. The 160,000 member group of SAG-AFTRA has gone on strike, joining the 11,000 members of the WGA. It is the first time that both of these organizations have gone on strike at the same time, the actors and the writers, since the 1960s. It's been an exceedingly long time. It has grinded the entertainment industry in California to a halt. I read somewhere that the strike is costing California's economy an estimated $30 million a day.
Whoa.
And it's a pretty pivotal moment, right? Last time we had a major labor dispute among creative professionals was the WGA strike about 10 years ago, which was all about 15 years ago. It was all about this new thing that was coming called, the internet and streaming, and how we were going to adapt to that change in technology and make sure writers got paid. And now here we are in 2023. Streaming is like the principal means by which we all consume film and television now. And actors and writers are trying to figure out how they are going to get paid in this new world order. Oh, yeah, and by the way, we have this thing called AI, and we have to figure out how we're not going to get replaced by machines as performers. And so there is now a massive strike to sort all of that out. And let me just open with this belief of mine, Zach, and, interested in your thoughts on this as well, both as a performer and as a labor lawyer in your own right. When it comes to labor disputes, certainly in the entertainment industry, but really across pretty much every industry, I am inclined to just basically agree with labor unless I have a reason to believe otherwise. Whatever labor is demanding when somebody goes on strike, my first thought is they probably have a point. Because, the thing that you have to understand about striking, and particularly with SAG-AFTRA and the WGA, striking is not plan A for SAG-AFTRA. It is not the first thing that you try. You don't get to striking unless nothing else works and this is your last resort. Because for these people, for actors, for writers, for any person who's in labor, who's in organized labor, strikes hurt. Mm-hmm. Strikes hurt, and they hurt the people on strike a lot more in the short term than the employers. And, and you're talking about people, like I was listening to a radio show where one of the writers for The Bear, which is a very, very popular show on FX. It's like the TV show that everybody's talking about now. He's a writer on that show, a hit show, and can't pay his bills. The little money that this person has, they are now going on strike to basically, and they're saying that as much as it sucks to make my income zero, which is what happens when you go on strike, it is the only thing is worse that is staying with the current state of affairs and screwing over my future. Like, it is better to sacrifice now in the short term to try to get a better future in the long term. And so when I see SAG-AFTRA go on strike, even though they know that it means they're not going to get any money, they're not going to get any money. They're going to be picketing every day, even as like the movie studios are trimming the trees so they can't even go to picket in the shade. And when it means that they are, they are risking the ire of the public, right? Because there's always going to be a segment of the population that's going to think that the actors and the writers are a-holes for taking away their favorite TV shows. They're willing to sacrifice all of those things because they know it's the only way to get the future that they need. And so when I understand that that's where they're coming from, it makes me inclined to want to support labor. And not just because, again, I'm an artist side entertainment lawyer, so I kind of have to support them anyway.
Well, so when I did labor law, I did the bitsiest of bits stuff. I never did anything on this level. But I also worked entirely representing the employers in these types of situations. And I'll tell you, Ryan, nothing like representing companies makes me really feel for the strikers. Like, because everything you said is true. And what really reminded me of this week was, and there's a reason I didn't last very long in that field. Did you see the quote, and I forget who it's from, and I wish I would have prepared that, of, well, we'll just wait till October when these people lose their houses and their apartments, then they'll
it was
be willing to negotiate.
an unnamed executive, because they didn't want to put their name on that, basically saying the quiet part out loud, that the way we're going to win this is by literally starving the actors and the writers, to death.
And now you see why I tend to side with the strikers in these situations. It's a horrible situation for them to be in. It is hard on them. It is hard on their family. But we can draw an analog to the music industry, right? How many recording artists wish they could go back and restructure that first deal so that it was better in the long haul, right? This is foresight, and I understand where they're coming from, because if you have a bad deal now, it gets worse over time. So I feel for them. I see where they're coming from. It's a rough spot all the way around, man.
And the strikers are seeing what lies ahead. And they know that, like, we have this current contract, which gets us paid residuals when our stuff is played on television, for example, or in conventional movie theaters, but we're not seeing significant residuals from the way that people are consuming content now and will be consuming even more in the future, which is streaming. And they see AI, and they see movie studios saying, we want to be able to take an actor, basically get their likeness once, and then be able to use that in AI forever. And the artists see how that can, the actors are saying, well, that's going to be pretty untenable for us. So we put this up on the screen here for the viewers and listeners to kind of give you an idea of what the union is proposing. What are some of the things that they want? And this is just a small clip, because it's a much longer list of proposals, but these are the big ones, right? They need 2% of revenue from streaming, and there are certain metrics that they can use to dictate, like, how much revenue is applicable to each streaming show, right? Because that's hard to do with a streaming service, because there's one streaming service, one subscription fee, and a bunch of different shows you can watch. So how do you know what income is attributable to which show? They say, well, there are some metrics that we can use, and whatever income is attributable to that show, we want 2% of that revenue. Which, when you consider how important actors are to any show, seems reasonable. Yeah. No, that's what I thought when I first saw, because I think about, like, collective bargaining agreements between, like, the NBA and the NBA Players Association.
Exactly what I thought.
And, like, they split that revenue 50-50. And I know there's going to be a lot of reasons why this is 2% and NBA is 50%, but 2% doesn't seem unreasonable for me. The SAG-AFTRA is also asking for an 11% increase in pay next year, followed by a 4% increase in year 2 and a 4% increase in year 3. The producers, the AMPTP, is saying, well, we can give you a 5% increase. And one of the things that the actors is noting with that is, look, we need the 11% just to bring us back to where we were before inflation. Like, if we are getting only a 5% increase, we're effectively getting a pay cut. And so that's why they're asking for the 11% there. They want informed consent from the union before the producers use actors to train AI. They want acknowledgement that when, for mocap or performance capture, like you saw in Avatar, they want acknowledgement that that's a union protected activity that's protected by SAG-AFTRA. And they just want additional protections for audition fairness, audition fairness, additional rest periods, health and retirement benefits, things like that. All in all, again, I believe these things to be fundamentally reasonable, if for no other reason that the artists, they would not be striking for these things if they did not need them, because this is a last resort and this hurts. And they're going up against a management that, can outlast them for a long time, right? They have infinity dollars in their bank account. Right. And these artists are living paycheck to paycheck, and they're living hand to mouth. And so they wouldn't do this if this wasn't something that they sorely needed. Now, a lot of you out there might be asking yourself, well, what can be done to support the actors, the writers, and other creative professionals who are impacted by the strikes? And thankfully, a lot of the unionized labor has made a lot of statements on social media, Zach, talking about, like, what are some of the things that we can do to help? What are some of the things that we shouldn't do? For example, they've said, don't boycott streaming services. Don't boycott movies, which I thought was like, oh, that's interesting. I thought, like, I figured that'd be the first thing that, like, oh my God, if I watch Netflix, am I being a scab? And it turns out, no, they said, no, go watch the streaming services, watch the movies, let Hollywood know that there's a market for our art. And so that's not the move. Don't boycott. But what they have said to do is to donate to an organization called the Entertainment Community Fund. A lot of actors and writers and folks I've talked to have mentioned this organization. They specifically said this is the place that you should donate to. They're supporting the actors, but they're also supporting a lot of other groups that are being impacted by the strike. And so I was like, all right, I keep hearing this name a lot, Zach. So I figured we should talk to somebody who might know a thing or two about this organization and teach us more about how we can support these professionals. We're joined now by Keith McNutt. He is the director of the Western Region for the Entertainment Community Fund. It is an organization that provides financial assistance for performers and other industry professionals that are affected by the work stoppage. Keith, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
We are thrilled to be chatting with you. I feel like you must be squeezing us in between two very busy things that you're doing right now. I imagine you are working around the clock right now. It's supposed to be a crazy time for you. How is your organization doing right now?
Well, thanks for asking. You know, the good news about us, I guess, is that we're so we've been doing crisis work for decades, literally. I started 25 years ago as a social worker in our AIDS program, and that was 10 years of crisis. And through Hurricane Katrina and 9/11 and the fires out here and earthquakes, labor management conflicts are as much a part of the fabric of this industry as all those other crisis periods. So we look at it as people are out of work, and we need to do whatever we can to step up and be there for them and help them get through the crisis in a healthy way. So,
and what does that look like in practice? Like when you get these donation dollars, how are you using it to support entertainment industry professionals?
Well, for us, we bring in other team members into the grant process, for example. So, you know, we provide a whole range of services, social services, emotional support, career counseling, health insurance. But when these sorts of crises come, the big thing that people come to us for is emergency financial assistance. And that's based on need. And, you know, particularly in this circumstance, we're coming out of this 3-year pandemic when people haven't been able to build up their savings. So we've seen a tremendous increase right away, which doesn't typically happen in situations like this. Usually it sort of grows over time as a crisis unfolds. But right away in the first month of the writer's strike, just to give you a black and white number, for the 6 months before May of this year, we were averaging about 200 people a month that we were helping in the LA office. And in May, we got 625 people calling us.
Oh, gosh.
And so that tripling of the volume is really what we're focused on managing right now, so we can keep up and get everybody the assistance they need in a timely way.
And for the performers out there who are impacted by the work stoppage right now and are listening to what you're saying, can you walk them through the process for what they do if they need help? What does that look like?
Yeah, they can come right to our website, entertainmentcommunity.org. There's a little pop-up box that comes up right when you enter the web page, and you click on that, and it follows you through the application process. It is taking us about a week right now to get through the applications. In normal times, it takes us about 48 hours to turn those around. But that's where we are, and we're bringing on a few more extra people to help because we're assuming that the volume is going to grow further with the SAG-AFTRA strike happening.
And what can people do to support the organization? Just go to that website, and I assume there's donation resources there?
There's donation resources. So we welcome anybody who wants to help. And if they specifically want to help people out here affected by the work stoppage, there's a drop-down list that says we want to focus their assistance for film and television people. And that's where they make the donation. And the application process is pretty straightforward. There's information laid out on the site. You basically have to demonstrate financial need and your work history in the industry. And then we process the grants and get them out to people for basic living expenses.
Keith, thank you. And thank you. Thanks to your organization for all that you do. I imagine the coming weeks, perhaps months ahead, are going to be very, very busy for you all. I hope that all the folks within the sound of our voices and who can see us on live stream support this organization and support these creators. This is, people in this line of work have given us so much. I think about the pandemic and how much we benefited from being able just to watch streaming all the time and have that distraction, and just the value that these people bring to our lives every day. Now is the time for us to give back and help these folks in this time of need. So check out entertainmentcommunity.org and let's provide some support for this organization. Keith, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much for helping us get the word out. We really appreciate it and look forward to continuing to help the community.
Thanks very much.